You're listening to Building the Broncos with Nick Kendell and Carl Dumler, Broncos country's leading draft and scouting analysts. Get on over to milehighhuddle.com to sound off on all things Broncos.
Hello there, Broncos country, and it is once again time for another episode of Building the Broncos. I am your host, Carl Dumler, and joining me once again, my co-host and good friend and married man, Mr. Nick Kendell. Man, it's good to have you back.
Hey, thank you for holding down the fort for a little bit, and back to normalcy. Was in Estes Park for a wedding, a beautiful Friday and Saturday. Got absolutely dumped on Sunday, but a beautiful time, and I kind of had that relief, but also a little bit of dread returning back to the status quo and the drudge of day-to-day life. But, getting to come back and talk a Broncos win, that's about as good as it gets.
Yeah, at least you got to miss the letdown once again of the Broncos losing last second. And we get to talk a Victory Monday, because it is Monday that we're recording this. This will come out a little bit later in the week, but no, it's great to have you back, man. And just excited that you got yourself married. She said yes. I was a little nervous, but no. And looked like it was a beautiful wedding. If you haven't seen it on Twitter, I recommend you going there and checking out some of his pictures, because, man, as much as sometimes the snow can ruin things, it made your pictures awesome, man. Yeah.
Nope, it was, and a little bit of chaotic getting everybody home, but, turned out okay. Nobody died, to my knowledge, at least yet.
That's good. But if you want to check those out, you can find Nick at Nick Kendell MHH. And of course, you can find me at Carl Dumler MHH. And you can find the podcast Twitter account at BTB Football Pod. And make sure you subscribe to our show and leave us a rating, as we value your input. You can find the show on iTunes, Stitcher, and even that of YouTube. Also, make sure you head on over to milehighhuddle.com, a new affiliate of the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated. This podcast is powered by Overtime Media.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Well, Nick, we are back for a stock report, and it is the last one we did was after the Chiefs game.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so hard to do the stock report just because so many players had such bad games, and you hate talking about the bad.
There was nothing but bad in that game. At least a lot of the losses this year they've been disheartening, no doubt, but not just absolutely getting your doors blasted off you on a Thursday night game against what's arguably your biggest rival right now. That was probably the low point of the season.
Right, exactly. And so now you get to come back to a stock report with victory. And there was a lot of good on both sides of the ball, a lot of young players especially stepping up. And it's just definitely nice to see some of how this team is coming together. And even if the Broncos don't make the playoffs this year, I think there's been a lot of good that's come out of this season. Especially, like I said, the young guys being able to emerge, some of the rookies starting to show well. And so that's going to bring us, I guess, then a hint towards your first stock up guy, your Iowa boy. Who is it?
My guy, been up and down so far this season, but we've pledged patience. Noah Fant coming through today, having far and away his biggest game of his career. 3 receptions on 4 targets for 115 yards, 1 touchdown, and that 75-yard touchdown pass was a thing of beauty. I mean, caught it in stride, broke a tackle, broke another one, and then just that speed, getting up to over 20 miles an hour according to Next Gen Stats for that 75-yard pass. But then also, the second pass he did a good job of kind of running a route to gain some separation, show the ball skills on the sideline, and then the third one fought through some traffic up the seam and adjusted to the pass. If it had been a little bit more inside, he might have taken that one to the house too, but had to turn around and adjust and secure it for the first down. So, we've seen the flashes. We've been preaching patience on here at the tight end. Typically it takes not only one season for a tight end to really start to show, but 2 full seasons before you really start to get an idea of what that tight end can be. But even if it's just flashes, and there's some pretty big damn flashes there as far as no fans concerned, especially that touchdown, that's super, super promising. So,
right.
Not a complete guy yet. Never was going to be a complete player year one. Always was going to take some time. But those flashes, that explosive pass catching ability, what he's going to do as a threat over the middle of the field, I mean, it's super dynamic. It's something that you need in today's NFL, and he's an emerging weapon for this offense that hopefully they'll be able to rely on for years to come. So this isn't by any means going to be the end of the lowlights. Those are still going to come with a fan. Those should be expected, but this was a game where you could really see those high-end traits, and you can actually kind of picture what you want him to be in this offense going forward.
Andrew Mason tweeted out earlier today that there are only 8 tight ends in NFL history that have had at least 40 catches and 500 yards with 13 yards per catch. And right now, Noah Fant is on task for 41 receptions, 533 yards, and 13 yards per catch. And the last tight end to do that, Rob Gronkowski, 2010. So it really does go to show you how difficult it is for a tight end to come into the NFL and be highly successful right off the bat. It just rarely happens. It's just such a position that, they have to learn how to block. They have to learn how to catch. There's just so much more thrown at them. It's almost like they're an offensive lineman and a receiver both. And when they're learning 2 different positions almost, it's just a lot thrown at them. And for Noah Fant, he's been having to learn how to be the H-back, the slot tight end, the end tight end. I mean, it was always going to take a little time. And he came in, we've said it on the show a few times, that he was more athlete than he was true tight end football, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, he came more as a wide receiver body and it's taken time to kind of change that. But, that athletic upside, it was there. I mean, the reason that he did what he did, I mean, he ran at the combine despite kind of I think he did kind of strain his hammy there on that first 40. And so he didn't run or jump like they thought he would, but still, pretty damn explosive. And that 75-yard touchdown was about as beautiful of a play as we've seen in years. Obviously, that Sutton touchdown against the Chargers, the Sutton touchdown this week, and that Fant touchdown, I would say pretty easily the best 3 highlights of this season, along with Lindsey's yesterday as well. But, knowing me, I'm going to take the pass plays.
Right.
Really just exceptional.
Right. And so, yeah, you get to see a little bit of the possible promise of what Fant brings. The ability to break some tackles, that was something you didn't see a whole lot when he was there at Iowa. And so it was nice to see that. Made some really nice catches. Just had it, like you said, his best all around game and definitely sets up some promise for the future. Looks like the Broncos truly have an emerging weapon. And we were talking about this right before the show. This past game, other than Cortland Sutton, the next best actual wide receiver was Deontay Spencer, and he has 0 yards, and he fumbled on that catch. And so right now the Broncos need another weapon to emerge, and Noah Fant was finally that guy for the Broncos that just made life easy for the quarterback, got himself open, and did things with the football beyond just make a catch. And so that's exactly what the Broncos need. And so that's going to bring me to my guy here then, Cortland Sutton. I mean, I think we've had him on here all but like maybe one stock report for Stock Up, because he's just been it's not that he's just a highlight reel. It's that he just catches everything that's thrown his direction. He catches easy passes. He catches the absolute ridiculous catches. I'm not sure I've seen a much better catch this season than what he had. He leaped from the 3-yard line to about 3 or 4 yards into the end zone, and really Ward was in better position to make that play than Sutton was. And Sutton just became a man among boys and just stole that ball from him, stole his soul. And just a great catch. But I'm also very much impressed just with that 3rd down and 11 play where they kind of ran a little bit of a pick route. But I mean, that's what you try to do in the NFL. But he again faked out Ward, faked like he's going outside, came back in on a quick slant, and boom. Picked up big yards, big first down when the Broncos needed a big play from him. And he's just, it's not that he's emerged to be a number one. It's how high on the list of number one wide receivers is he right now? I mean, are you willing to put him top 10 right now?
Oh, man, that's tough. I'm probably not going to put him in the top 10 just yet. Just, overall body of work. Want to see those touchdown numbers go up more. And it's kind of hard to pick him. I mean, I know that Odell Beckham's not having as good of a year, but, if you are doing the playground style where you're picking guys, one after another, are you taking Sutton over Odell Beckham for one game?
No, you're not.
Yeah. So it's that kind of thing, I think he's definitely in that 11 to 20 range easily, but top 10, I mean, obviously off the top of the head, like Hopkins, Julio, Devontae Adams, Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, even like T.Y. Hilton and some other guys as well, Tyreek Hill. So he's definitely a borderline top 10, but I don't think I would put his name in Sharpie in the top 10 of wide receivers.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not ready to put him quite there yet, but the fact that I've seen this much improvement from year 1 to year 2 is such a promising thing, especially when you consider the quarterback play, the offensive line play, and really coming into the season, he was thought of as that number 2 behind Emmanuel Sanders. And I mean, as much as I love Sanders and I mean, he went out and had a great game for the 49ers, great for him, but it's still one of those, Sutton has just emerged as that top guy, even when Sanders was here. And just making the big catches, he was the guy that both quarterbacks now have targeted and went after because he's the guy that they can trust. And I loved that Brandon Allen had that trust in Sutton just to go make a play for him. It was, hey, this guy's in single coverage, I'm going to throw it to him. I mean, OBJ, that's exactly what he wanted on that 4th down play. I can't even get the ball. And he had one-on-one situation, and it's one of those, you should just be throwing it to your top wide receiver and trust him to go make a play. And this year, Sutton's showing he can absolutely be trusted to go make the play for the Broncos.
Yep, I definitely agree. He's emerging as number 1. There's no doubt about it. They might have to do some work at the receiver opposite him, considering that the other wide receivers had, what would you say, 0 yards?
0 yards and 1 fumble.
Not the best. In fact, and Spencer had 3 targets also. So Sutton eating up all those. They use the running backs more than the wide receivers not named Sutton in the pass game. So interesting there, but that's kind of what we've seen with the 49ers as well. So we'll see if it changes. But moving on now, because we're already 13 minutes in. My first stock down, he's been trending down, but I haven't been gone, so it's time to pile back on. Garrett Bowles. I mean, we're talking about how good Noah Fant's touchdown highlight was. Well, on the other end of that highlight, number 72 yelling, Brandon Allen, look out, and getting absolute pop before delivering that pretty decent ball to Noah Fant. So Garrett Bowles, 2 more penalties today, a false start as well, or yesterday, excuse me. And just, I mean, first round pick, year 3, making the same exact mistakes. At some point, probably the stock can't get down much lower, but I just can't help but keep bringing him up because he's going to continue to be an issue for this offensive line, the offense in general, until he's probably gone. And they don't have better options. That's the thing that sucks. I mean, if Juwan James could play, we might not be having this conversation, but Garrett Bowles, really not it. And that's probably outside of quarterback questions because we don't know anything about Locke yet, really. Left tackle has got to be the biggest thing they have to correct this offseason if this team is looking to regain relevance in the league.
Right. I keep having people ask me, why isn't Bowles getting benched? Well, yeah, he's been terrible, but really the bench is even that much worse. I mean, there's some of those guys I remember in preseason that looked against second, third string guys just as bad as Bowles is looking against first string guys. So are you really wanting to put those guys in? At least Bowles right now, for the most part, usually just holds the guy and keeps his quarterback from getting hit every single time. But yeah, you're right. He deserves to be on this list almost every single week. His play just is so up and down. I thought Fangio made a great comment today of he is a guy that's playing with a lot of confidence, but maybe he's playing with too much confidence.
Hence how he doesn't connect with his own issues and still playing with the wrong technique. He doesn't get it, I don't think. I'm not going to go on some, stink level tirade about it, but I think it's after the season, it's probably time to close the door on Garrett Bowles and move on. I'm not moving him to guard. I'm looking to trade him, or he's a swing tackle, which there is some value there. There is some value there, but starting him is killing this unit. And obviously, He has more upside than Wilkinson at tackle. It's easy to see that on tape, but the technique and just the growth, and at some point you got to question that not only the brains, but the heart of the whole thing. So Garrett Bowles got to be stocked down again.
Right. All right. Well, I'm going to go a guy that's, I know a lot of people are going to be a little frustrated that he's on this list, but Chris Harris Jr. And this is just a little bit, I thought there were times yesterday that he took way too many chances. When you're going against Odell Beckham Jr., and I think the bigger issue is the team is winning. The team had a pretty sizable lead for quite a while there. And a lot of times in those situations, you play a little bit more conservative and just try to make sure that the big play doesn't happen that allows the team to get back into it. Well, Chris Harris took a few chances there that I didn't think he should have and allowed for Odell Beckham to really take a 10-yard pass and turn it into a 40-yard pass. And just, I don't know, especially when you're going against a guy that has such good hands like Odell, you're not going to win that battle. If you're both fighting for the football, I'm sorry, Odell's going to come up with it, not Chris Harris Jr. And so that was just a little frustrating to watch. I mean, I think he still had an okay game, but I thought of all his games this year, that was probably some of the least intelligent football I've seen Chris Harris Jr. play. And I mean, that's saying something because he's one of the smartest players I've ever seen play the game. He's not the most athletic. He's not the biggest. He's not the strongest, but he's one of the smartest guys on the field. He knows what's going on. Where this is one of those games, I felt like he just didn't quite understand the opponent that he was going against. And so that's why he's on my stock down. It's not so much that he had this absolute terrible game, but it's just a matter of the expectations and also just understanding the situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Devonta Harris had that nice play. Duke Dawson playing well. I think there's, not really great names outside of Chris Harris Jr. at cornerback, but I think the system and just, especially with how the safeties are playing too, they're able to overcome some of that lack of talent as long as everyone's playing disciplined football, which is, I mean, they did that pretty well this week, and they've been doing it pretty well. But I don't know how much I'd put Chris Harris Jr. stock down too much, but it's really hard to pick too much with the defense outside of, hey, it'd be nice if we had, Jeffrey Simmons, that kind of thing.
Right.
So, and speaking of Devonta Harris, stock up, Carl, I'll kick it to you.
Yeah, he's on my list. It's been amazing just to see, like you said, this scheme has really helped a lot of these young guys be able to come in and perform at a high level. I mean, this is a guy that was a street free agent, and the Broncos go pick him up, and most likely we're not expecting that this guy's going to be your number 2 corner on the team. But here he is, and teams are picking on him, trying to pick on him, but he's making plays. And making plays in very big moments. Now, yes, he had the missed tackle on the touchdown, and so there's still a couple things here and there, but when you're considering this guy at most was thought to be the 5th or 6th cornerback on the team and is now number 2, and he's going out there and making plays for this team, that's something special. He also did a great job of understanding when they were trying to run quick passes against him, and I think he had 1.5 tackles for loss in this game. And so, again, he's making impact plays for the Broncos. He's a sound tackler for the most part. Like I said, he did miss the 1 tackle, but he is usually a pretty sound tackler, and he just fits this system well. And as much as if Chris Harris leaves, I know we've talked about it here, that cornerback becomes a huge need for this team. It has been nice to see a lot of these young guys show some promise. I mean, Bosby, before he got hurt, he was showing a lot of promise. And so there's something there, and the scheme is just something that's special. I mean, I was talking with somebody the other day of just, like Wade Phillips, he was great for the talent the Broncos had back in 2015. But I don't think his scheme does as much when there's less talent. Where Vic Fangio has a scheme where you don't have to have the best talent in the league to still be a highly successful defense. And the Broncos are showing that this year. They have talent, but there's still a lot of other positions that you're sitting there saying, I don't know if this guy could function on another team at the level he's playing here for the Broncos.
Yeah, I don't really disagree. And I guess stock up for me, a big game, showing some mobility, showing some accuracy, some good decisions, and letting his playmakers make plays. Brandon Allen, stock. I don't want to spend too much time. We're already 20 minutes in, but had a solid game. He's going to get at least that Vikings game, probably the Bills game as well to show out. And, I think more than anything, he's probably fighting for a backup spot on this team going forward. But either way, I think it's helping with the offense, the mobility there, a little bit better play. I mean, obviously just one game sample size against a not a great Cleveland defense, but he gave his playmakers the chance to make plays, and they went out there and executed better as well. And I thought the play calling was a little bit better as well. So it's a lot of things, but gotta have some stock up for Brandon Allen. And if this is his only win of his entire career in Denver, that at least he'll have that to look back for. And I saw him get the ball immediately after he took the knee to get the win. So good for you, Brandon Allen. Stock up. Obviously, I'm not calling for a Trevor Siemian situation where let's continue to see the guy with mediocre tools and the, kind of the fun story. Maybe he ends up being Tom Brady. I'm not getting suckered by that, but he can at least be a viable backup, a cheap option, and a guy that has some value on the team. And just for that, he deserves a stock up shout out this week.
Right. I mean, you consider this guy didn't even have the offseason with the Broncos and came in, hasn't worked with any of these receivers till this past week, hasn't played a meaningful game in 4 years, and is able to go out there and make a couple plays. I mean, that's really all you could ever ask from this guy in such a difficult situation that he's coming into. And he did it. He stayed, for the most part, halfway calm. I mean, it's easy to see that there are weaknesses to his game, things that he struggled with for sure. But it's at least the Broncos didn't look so incompetent that you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, we have to endure this for the next few weeks. So it's at least a breath of fresh air that way. It also shows just how much this scheme really translates so much better when you have that athletic quarterback. And we'll talk about that more as we go through this podcast. But again, it was a nice game for him. I think if you're looking at just raw stats, it was an above average game. If you're looking at the situation of he came in, it was a good game. And he deserves some props there. But I guess that brings us then to your number 2 stock down. You have another quarterback here.
Yeah, Joe Flacco, obviously stock down, injured. But we saw Allen. There just seemed to be more energy on the offense. And, if everybody's putting it on Flacco, or if everybody's putting it on Scangarello, or the playmakers around him, or the offensive line, you have to have more nuance than that. But Flacco, obviously, not... Even if he was the best, quote-unquote, option at quarterback on paper for this team, not bringing energy, missing reads, the lack of mobility, the lack of energy, I mean, all that stuff was compounding and making this world of suck that much more sucky. And we saw better execution, play calling, etc. this week, but even just a little bit of the energy that Allen brought with his legs, picking up a few easy plays, and his playmakers going out there. And that throw to Sutton, not great, but it's one of those things where Sutton's showing out enough that, hey, if he's covered and it's one-on-one, he's open. You got to take those shots. So, and then also getting the play action or the penalty down the field to Spencer, et cetera, et cetera. That's something that we just have not been seeing from Flacco. So probably we will never see Flacco take another snap for the Denver Broncos. Hopefully, fingers crossed. And not sure exactly that we don't have time to really go into all the specifics with the cap implications, what happened with the restructure, what it means to move on from him, et cetera. That's for another time. But Joe Flacco stock done, probably F in the chat room for his career in Denver, because I would say it's probably over as far as meaningful snaps go.
For sure. And I mean, it's a blip on the radar, I guess, of Broncos history of Joe Flacco. So I wish him well wherever he goes next, but it's definitely not going to be with the Broncos unless something crazy happens. But my next stock down, I'm going to go Connor McGovern. I didn't think this was a great game for him. There were times where he was getting pushed back in the pass game. The run game, there's times it just looks like he's lost. Like he's supposed to get to the second level, but he's not sure who he's supposed to block on the second level. And so there's been a couple times where he really whiffed on a linebacker on a play where if he makes that block, there's a nice hole for the running back to go pick up some pretty decent chunk of yards. And this is a guy that they're looking to re-sign, and I want them to re-sign Connor McGovern. But part of it is I just don't want them to have to worry about another hole that they have to fill on the team. So it's going to be a little bit of a contract issue of how much is he truly worth. And this season, I would say that he's been an average at best center. And I do think that center is one of those positions that we've seen where teams can go find somebody in the draft and they can be a decent starter day one in the NFL. And so, I mean, I want him to stay here in Denver, but I also don't want them to go and overpay for him either, because I don't think he's earned a top 10 contract at the center position.
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to bring him back, but the same reason I wanted to bring back Billy Turner. It's hard to find even average offensive linemen out there. And there's something to be said for continuity and versatility, which they both would bring. So probably a little bit of the same kind of argument there. But stock up for me, final one here before we get to a break. Derek Wolfe playing his best ball since 2015, maybe even before that. I mean, he's out there. Not only, he's always been a pretty darn good player in the run game, and he's doing a good job controlling double teams, the B and C gap in the run game, playing the edge when he needs to, etc. But he's rejuvenated as a pass rusher. I mean, he only had 1 sack and 1 tackle for loss, but he's pushing the pocket. He's getting back there, and he just looks like, like he did 4 or 5 years ago, before a lot of these injuries started to really crop up with him. So Derek Wolfe, obviously Justin Simmons is priority number 1 for the re-signing, but Derek Wolfe is creeping up quickly to number 2 with how he's playing, especially if you can get this level of play for an under-market value for him, considering he wants to come back and play in Denver, so he said in the past.
If I'd asked you at the beginning of the season, where would Derek Wolfe end up on the total or in the list of sacks for the Broncos? You'd probably have Von Miller, Bradley Chubb towards the top, right? Of course, those 1, 2. And then, I don't know, who would you have third?
I don't know. Who do you have?
I don't know, because
it's put me hard on the spot, and you don't
know. I know. I'm
bull.
sorry. Dang it! Then you had to throw it right back at me.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That's I guess Shelby Harris was the guy that I thought would probably be third.
Yeah.
But right now, Derek Wolfe is the leading person in sacks for the Broncos with 5. And he's leading the team in tackles for loss.
Yeah. He's
and
playing
so
good ball.
It just shows this guy has really become a true impact player again for the Broncos. And I think he is just such a great fit for this scheme. I think he's a great fit for just personality-wise of what Fangio wants on the defense. And so you're right. I mean, he keeps climbing back up on the priority list of guys the Broncos should bring back for next season. And I would love to see Wolfe back with the Broncos. It's going to be interesting to see value-wise what he's willing to sign for. Because I know he wants to stay with the Broncos, and his family wants him to stay with the Broncos, but is he worth $10 million a year? Because there was some talk that was, like Shelby Harris, if he had a really breakout season, that's something the Broncos would have to start looking at to pay him. So Derek Wolfe, where's his contract end up at? I mean, that's something for them to figure out, not us, but it is. He's one of those guys I'd love to see the Broncos bring back. My guy is the number 1 priority for the Broncos to sign, that they should be calling him right now saying, what do you want? Justin Simmons. I mean, this guy is just balling out. He is looking like a top 5 safety in the NFL right now. And I mean, he's been great in both pass and run game. I mean, he has been lock on and coverage. That big play there in the fourth quarter to come up with the tackle for loss, where he even said, I kind of took a chance that Mayfield wouldn't keep the football. But it is kind of one of those, you got to know that they're going to probably put it in Chubb's hands. And so Justin Simmons come down, make such a huge play in that game. Man, it's been fun to watch him in this system. And we talked about it before the season started that we thought he would be perfect for this system, but we weren't sure if he was going to ever quite live up to the hype. Well, he's lived up to the hype so far. And he seems to be only getting better as the season goes. And it seems like the price tag's only getting higher as the season goes. So for me, I'm sitting here saying, get this guy called into the office and with his agent and say, what is it going to take? And let's get this done.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's playing great ball. And, 2 tackles for loss this week. That one where he came up and got the tackle behind the line of scrimmage on 3rd down, beautiful. And, I got to give a shout-out also to A.J. Johnson, 13 tackles, 6 solo, and half a tackle for loss as well. So, man, and another one too. Duke Dawson Jr. had a pretty good game. So a lot of good talent on this defense emerging, despite the Broncos not really investing a bunch in the defensive side of the ball early over the past few drafts. And, give credit to the scouting department, the coaches, and the players themselves. So, it's a big thing. So we've got to take a break here. We're already 30 minutes in. Have only taken one. We'll be right back, folks. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Alrighty, folks, and we are back to the Building the Broncos podcast. I am Nick Kendell, along with Carl Dumler. And Carl, I got some easy questions for you. I guess we should go over some of these stats first for the Broncos game. Broncos really surprisingly did not have nearly the first downs that the Browns did in this game. The Browns had 21 first downs compared to the Broncos 13. Shouldn't be surprising though, considering the Broncos had so many explosive pass plays in this game. There's a big reason the Broncos yards per play total was 7 compared to the Browns 4.8, and many of the Broncos yards came off of just 3 to 4 big plays. So it's a little bit of a concern there, but explosive offense makes the world go around, so can't really depend on it, but it's something you do want to build for. Passing offense, only 20 attempts, that's a winning formula, especially with Brandon Allen. 3 sacks for 18 yards, not great for the Broncos there, but then 127 rushing yards, which is great, 6.4 yards per carry, which is awesome, and so those are all winning numbers. Explosive offense in that regard, winning numbers. The 2 things that I guess concern me the most, 3 things that would concern me the most in this one, and don't convey a winning formula in the future. The Broncos lost the penalty battle. They had 7 penalties for 55 yards compared to 5 for 40 for the Browns. So that's not great. That's not what you want to see. The Broncos also lost a turnover battle with that really bad fumble by Spencer, which gave the Browns an easy field position for points. And the Broncos lost the time of possession too. But again, when you have such explosive pass plays like they did, and some explosive run plays as well, and to the efficiency that they were having in both those areas, the chunk plays, then you're going to win a fair amount of football games. But I think that has as much to do with not only the Broncos' young playmakers making plays, but just the ineptitude and the chaos and the disarray that is this Browns team under Freddie Kitchens. So food for thought there.
Right. I talked on the preview podcast that one of the best things Brandon Allen could do in this game is just get the ball into the playmakers' hands, because the Browns are one of the worst tackling teams in football. And they also just have these terrible penalties that just seem to show up at the most inopportune times. They actually did pretty good penalty-wise in this one compared to their usual. But he did. That's exactly what he did, and the Broncos made guys miss. Heck, I don't know if I should feel bad for the guy getting fired today. He kind of brought it on himself with his tirade on Twitter, but it was about that missed tackle on Noah Fant. And he missed other tackles, but that was the main one that everybody was talking about. And so again, this was one of those, the Broncos were playing a team that is just in flat out chaos. And they took advantage of it, and they made the plays they had to. But you're right. There are some concerns moving forward. You're not going to have that many explosive plays in most games. That was kind of an anomaly for the Broncos, especially. And so you're going to have a little bit more consistency in drives moving forward. And you're going to need that for your defense too. Like you said, that time of possession, they won 35 minutes to 24 minutes. And so that's a pretty big difference there. But no, overall, you got to like what you saw considering the circumstances for the Broncos. And you got to like that the offense really started taking some more chances in a game, getting a little bit more explosive, looking downfield, not just the quick outs, not the quick dump offs to the running backs as often. They still did some of that, but it really was that they were trying to push the ball down the field in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. You are correct there. So I guess got to ask you some quick, easy questions there, and we'll obviously be debating this for a bit because we got a bye week coming up, but what changed for the Broncos? What is the difference, obviously, besides Flacco, but what changed from, not putting up points to the, I guess, if you want to call it an offensive explosion for 24 points
for the Broncos, that is offensive explosion.
Yeah.
But, when you're scoring, 9-10 points more than your season average, that's a pretty big explosion. But, no, there's a couple big things that stuck out to me. The first one, how the Browns could rush the quarterback was such a big deal. With Joe Flacco, you can tell your edge rushers rush with your hair on fire and get back there. With Brandon Allen, you have to know that you have to defend the edges. I mean, they even talked about it, that was something the Browns harped on all week. The broadcast crew was talking about that, of don't let this guy get out of the pocket. Keep him contained in the pocket. Well, that means you can't rush as fast. That means you can't get there and try to beat him around the edge, because that opens up a hole for the quarterback to escape. So that allowed plays like, especially to Noah Fant, where we haven't been able to see him get down the seam or get down the middle of the field as much, because the Broncos just haven't had the time. They've had to rely on him to help in the blocking game. They've had to get the ball out of Flacco's hands as quick as possible before the guys come around the edge. Well, this one, Noah Fant could go ahead and go down the field. And so that's one big difference. And you're starting to see just the limitations, I think, that you see with Flacco. I mean, there's big things that Flacco brings that Brandon Allen doesn't, of just that experience and understanding of the game, and probably a little bit more consistent arm, all those kind of things. But when you can have that and make those defenders have to hold up for a little bit, it allows a quarterback to scan the field a little bit more and make some plays. And then, of course, him picking up a first down on third down with his legs. I mean, that's a big difference. And so the offensive coordinator, Scangarello, not being hampered by offensive tackles that can't block. I mean, there was still some of that. I mean, we saw even on the Noah Fant touchdown, like you said, Garrett Bowles having to say, "Look out, Brandon." And, I mean, that still was still there, but it wasn't as often. And, allowed them to make some plays downfield. Then you also saw where the Browns really sold out to try to stop the run, even though they didn't stop the run. And so it did leave those one-on-one opportunities. And thankfully, this is one of those times where a quarterback said, even when our wide receivers covered, I'm still going to go trust them to go make a play. And where I felt like Flacco, there was just too many times he was way too conservative. I know he talked about the offensive coordinator being too conservative, but Flacco did too. I mean, Flacco, too often, guys would be open down the field and he would take the dump off. And where this is one of those games where Brandon Allen's like, I got nothing to lose. Nobody expects me to do anything. I'll just throw it up there and let Cortland Sutton go make an incredible play. And so those were some of the big differences for me that I saw in this game that, and you already talked about it also, just the energy.
Yeah.
I mean, guys just seemed a lot more into the game. And making plays that they hadn't been making earlier in the year. I mean, you think about like Noah Fant in this game, making some big plays. And then you think back to the Chiefs game where he had 3 big drops. How much, I mean, I don't think the Broncos win that game, but how much does it start to change the outlook of that game if Noah Fant makes those plays? And I mean, you saw other guys make some diving catches in this one that maybe they weren't making earlier in the year. So there's just an energy in this game that has not been there most of the season.
Yeah. So I guess we're talking about things that have changed, but what has stayed the same? You know, like they obviously can't change everything.
Well, I mean, Garrett Bowles still looks like Garrett Bowles. Is that what you're talking about? No.
Yeah, that kind of, but also like, I feel like a big part of it, and this again, I like to draw back to my college football understanding because it's a little bit more basic and rudimentary, but like the big difference week to week with a team like the Iowa Hawkeyes that doesn't have, the weapons on the outside, they're college level players, it's execution. And you're kind of getting at it too there. But like some of the play calling there did differ, but like the guys executing it, the difference between Fant dropping that pass and taking it 75 yards would be huge. The difference between Sutton or like Brandon Allen going out there and executing, that's a big thing. So kind of stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like you said, there were still times that the execution wasn't quite there like you would like to see. I mean, and that's going to happen because the other team still gets to go make plays. And there were still some issues again, just with the offensive line, with some blocking, with some miscommunications when they're bringing, especially that AA gap blitz. The Broncos just continued to struggle with that. I don't know what the issue is, if there's just a lack of communication in the offensive line, lack of the quarterback recognizing that it's coming. Running back, I know Freeman didn't make a great block on one of the AA gap blitzes. So there's still some issues there that are showing up that are a concern moving forward, because it does limit sometimes what you can do. when teams know that they can beat you because you can't stop that every single time, it does limit your offense a little bit. Defensively, I mean, we continue to see a lot of the same things, very disciplined group, know their job. They're not trying to do too much. Still going out there making plays. It doesn't seem like no matter who they play. I mean, this was a game where Broncos got up early and the Browns had to be aggressive, and the Broncos still were able to contain them for the most part. I love that the red zone defense continues to show up big time every week. And I mean, they were put in some pretty bad situations because it wasn't only that the Browns won the time of possession battle, but they won the field position battle. And so for the defense to continue to step up and hold teams to field goals or stop them on fourth down, those kind of things, that remaining the same just shows again just how much Fangio being here really just makes that scheme so great and makes it where we can trust that this defense is going to show up week in, week out.
Yeah. All right. So I guess what is the main takeaway you have going into the bye week?
That this team is young. I mean, it's so easy to see that where like the struggles at the end of games to close them out. That shows up when you have a really young team that's still learning how to win games. But it also shows up where you're going to win some games that people didn't expect. I saw Colin Cowherd today. Did you see his little clip?
I did not.
Okay. He was apologizing for his worst take of his career. Because he was thinking the Browns were going to, he made the claim the Browns were going to come back and win the AFC North. And he had earlier in the week when he was doing his, telling people what bets they should make, he made the Broncos versus Browns game like his lock of the week, that bet on the Browns big. And of course, that didn't work out well for anybody that took his advice. And so again, for the Broncos, they're going to show up in some games that people don't expect. They're going to win some games that the people don't expect, but it also means they're probably going to lose some games that people really don't expect, because it's just hard to tell week in and week out exactly what you're going to get from this team, because there are going to be those quote unquote rookie mistakes that happen. And so it is just kind of it's a building season, but it's been great to see the growth pattern of the young players for this team.
It does feel like there is more direction with this squad as far as the young talent, but then you have the whole quarterback situation and comments conflicting with Fangio, Scangarello, and Elway that kind of make it hard to totally buy in to the direction. And then you have to, how much is actually truth versus PR versus, playing the media game to play the fans. So we'll see. A lot will be done in the off season, and obviously a lot of conflicting reports. Again, that's how it is, but we'll kind of just take the temperature of the direction of this team at that point. So, and I guess the last question is what to expect going forward.
Honestly, I mean, just because of the difficulty of the schedule moving forward, I don't expect much to show up in the win column.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest of where the Broncos are at. I mean, I know people are going to be excited about the offensive output, but the Browns were also the 21st ranked defense in football, according to DVOA. So it wasn't like they were playing this outstanding defense by any means. Where these next 2 weeks, they're going to play some pretty tough defenses, and we'll kind of get a little bit of idea of what this offense can do. I mean, they're still missing pieces, but it is nice just to see, like I said, the young pieces stepping up, and just to see how many, I guess my big thing moving forward is how many of these holes are actually filled by the end of the year. Because right now there are a lot of positions that you're sitting there saying, okay, it's easy to see the Broncos could use an upgrade at this position. I mean, everybody was talking about the linebacker position heading into the season and saying, how could they not go get a Devin Bush? How could they not go sign somebody more? And now, really, to me, that position has really moved down my needs board.
Yeah.
And I mean, not that you still don't want to upgrade the position, but I think because of the scheme and because you got two guys playing, Todd Davis and Johnson playing so well, it's kind of moved down the board for me a little bit. So again, sometimes you're going to see those guys emerge. Devontae Harris is another guy that's kind of emerging, that's making cornerback not as big of a need as maybe it was 3 weeks ago. And so yeah, I guess that's for me the biggest thing moving forward.
All right. Well, can't disagree with that. I'm sure we'll have a chance to talk more about it as we come up with content for the bye week. But we got to take one more big break, folks. We'll be right back for your probably will be pretty consistent, not super long section, but a little bit of draft content for you guys. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Alrighty, and we are back on the Building the Broncos podcast. I am Nick Kendell along with Carl Dumler. And Carl, some draft talk here. I know the Broncos won this week, so everybody's enjoying living in the moment, but we are approaching, as crazy as it is, the end of the season is in sight. It's coming up. The season's already more than halfway over. The college season is pretty close to done. Only 4 regular season games left, I believe, at least for most teams, for my Hawkeyes at least. So, we're going to really start turning our eyes towards the NFL draft a little bit more. And what better way than to reveal our own top 20 big boards?
Yeah, that sounds good to me, man. I'm kind of interested to see, because I know you and I have just from our little bit of kind of hint towards each other of where we're at on our big board, we have some differing thoughts on a couple things here. So I'm interested to see what you have to say here.
Alrighty. Well, you don't see my board, Carl. I'm devious. I do have your board, so it's going to be a little bit different in that regard. But that's okay. That's not the worst. So I guess I'll leave it off to you first. Your 20th overall player.
20th. All right, we'll start at
Backwards.
the bottom here. I'm going to go, and this is a guy I keep seeing mocked to the Broncos in the top 10, and I guess it drives me crazy a little bit, just because if you're looking at one position the Broncos have been absolutely stout at this season, it is safety. But at the same time, this guy has so much potential and talent on the field. Grant Delpit of LSU, it's hard to argue with what he could bring to a team. But right now, unless Justin Simmons leaves, I can't see the Broncos going after this guy. But at the same time, I can't have him off my top 20 board for the Broncos because the talent is there.
All right. Well, Carl, my 20th overall player is Grant Delpit.
What?
Yep, I know. I saw that when I opened yours up. I'm like, well, that's nice. That'll be easy to kind of just cheat off each other there. But Delpit's probably a top 15 player in this class, but he's not the best tackler. And the Broncos are pretty good at safety with Simmons and Jackson, maybe bringing back Chris Harris Jr., who might transfer to safety at some point. So if they lose Simmons, then obviously we have a reshuffling here. But I'm going to operate in the reality where the Broncos aren't dumb enough to let a young, very talented emerging leader at safety walk. So that would push safety way down the board. And Grant Delpit, a good player, but for my money, as far as true NFL talent, which this is crazy to say, but I think he is the third best prospect in that LSU secondary. Unfortunately, the best one is a true freshman, Stingley, who is, if he was coming out this year, I think he'd be a top 5 pick. He is that level of a talent. Absolutely incredible. But I have Delpit at 20 as well. So my 19th player, I have Javon Kinlaw, the defensive tackle / defensive end from South Carolina. He's not really a nose tackle type, but super long, super good get off. He was all over the field against Georgia, giving them a hard time when South Carolina beat Georgia, upset Georgia, and also gave Alabama a pretty hard time too. So he's still pretty new to football, a little bit raw, but the tools, the get off, the length he has are all top notch. And with, if they bring back Derek Wolfe, maybe this need drops down a bit because you can live with Walker / Jones at that other 5 technique, the other defensive end spot. But Kinlaw is really talented, so I needed him on my board here, and he comes in at 19.
Well, I have him at 17. So
Okay.
I like him even more than you. No, I'm just kidding. But it is. There's 2 positions for the Broncos that I'm willing to take more upside rather than true what have they shown on the field, and that's defensive line and offensive line, just because of the coaches. Bill Kolar and Munchak, 2 of the best coaches at their positions that have really shown that they can make young guys perform at a very, very high level. And so if you bring in a guy like Kinlaw, pair him with Kolar, I think you turn that guy into a star. Yeah. So if the Broncos trade back, let's say that they're at right now they're projected to pick, I think, number 9. So if they trade back and Kinlaw's there, I have no problem with them taking him. If he's there in the 2nd round, oh my goodness, I'm running to the podium.
All right. Well, your 19th overall player?
I went with Paulson Adebo. And this is a little bit, because cornerback is such an unknown position for the Broncos right now. I really don't know where they're going to go with this position. I mean, if Chris Harris Jr. comes back, then it definitely drops down how much this position is needed. But it's also, even beyond Chris Harris, what is Bosby when he comes back? Because that was a pretty serious injury, pretty scary one. Is he going to be the exact same player? Callahan, we still have no clue what he is. I mean, is he ever going to take a snap for the Broncos? Are they even going to cut him in the offseason? Maybe.
Yeah, there might be some sort of injury settlement thing there. So we'll see.
So again, cornerback is such a position of flow for the Broncos right now, where it could be either really, really stacked if all those guys come back and are fully healthy and ready to go, or it could be a position where the Broncos are needing to take maybe 2 guys early in the draft to help with the position. So I have him there. I think he's a pretty high quality cornerback. He's had his struggles a little bit. He's not the most athletic guy by any means, but he's still out there, making plays. And I think he could be a pretty decent fit with what the Broncos do here.
Alrighty. I do not have Paulson Adebo in my top 20.
Ooh.
I do like him. I feel like he's more of a cover 3 cornerback though. But, number 18 for me, offensive line here starting off. Jedrick Willis, the right tackle from Alabama. He has been very dominant at the point of attack, one of the best run blockers this season. He has length, but he also has a skill set and a frame where he could move inside to guard if need be. So right now I'm operating as if the Broncos need to be looking at both tackle spots as well as guard and center. I mean, the only one that I feel really good about going forward is Dalton Reisner. So you need to look at that. And I really think Jedrick Willis, he came on this year. Not many people knew about him, but he's moving up the boards quickly. And the fact that he could play a guard spot or right tackle, maybe left tackle, but definitely guard or right tackle, adds value. So I have him there at 18. And he's somebody that more people need to know about him. He's playing really, really good football, really talented player.
Well, I also went offensive line here for number 18. And I went with Creed Humphrey of Oklahoma.
He just missed for me. He's at 22.
Is he? Okay.
Yep.
I love his game. I think he's one of those guys that could play center or guard, and it's something the Broncos obviously, I mean, if McGovern moves on, obviously they're probably going to move on from Leary. I know there's talk of Wilkinson moving into that right guard spot, but even there, I mean, I watched him in preseason, and I didn't think he was much better at guard than he was tackle. He had his struggles there. Now, maybe if he's there full time, he really improves and takes off for the Broncos. But I still think you need depth there. You still need some guy that's going to be a quality starter moving forward. And Creed Humphrey, one of the better interior offensive linemen of this draft. Hard to not want him with the Broncos, either if he's there in the second round or if, again, they drop back later in the first round.
All right. So we have 17 now for me. I have Alex Leatherwood at 17. Left tackle / potential guard for Alabama. He's playing pretty good football this year. I don't think he is an elite level tackle by any means, but I do like that versatility as well. Long guy, good mover in space, and again, just really hammering home the offensive line, not only need for the Broncos, but the talent that's going to be available in honestly the first 3 rounds of this upcoming draft class.
Yeah. He just barely missed my board. I really thought about putting him on here. Probably should. Just because, like you said, just of the need for the team. And especially he has also ability to kick inside if you need him there too. So yeah. I probably should have him on my board. I just don't. Like I already said, I have Javon Kinlaw here. And then 16, I have another offensive lineman, Austin Jackson of USC.
And I'm in the same spot. Austin Jackson at 16.
Boom. Same thought. Good. Now, this is a guy, I know most people are really focused on the top 2 tackles of this draft. And what they could bring to the Broncos if they keep moving down. I know some people were actually a little bit upset about losing or winning that game because it took us a little bit further away from Tristan Wirfs and Andrew Thomas. But if our consolation prize is Austin Jackson, I'm still going to be pretty darn happy. Yeah. I'll be honest. I mean, he's still a little bit raw, but again, I'm willing to take high upside at the tackle position. And I know some people say, well, that was Garrett Bowles. Well, Austin Jackson's more than what Garrett Bowles ever was.
Also, Garrett Bowles is, the talent still warrants the first round pick. The issue is the intelligence in combination with the work ethic. It's not the specs with Bowles. It's much more of a deeper thing, which is a big reason we've seen a change in philosophy. But continue. Right. Sorry, just important. I got to keep saying that.
It is. But Austin Jackson offers more in the strength category. offers more in the ability to anchor. He's a little bit longer, all those kind of things. And so I really like his game. I love what I've seen. He's very, very aggressive. I think he would be great here in Denver.
Yeah, I like him a lot too. I wouldn't be surprised if he returned and didn't come out, but I've seen him mock drafted as high as 5th overall. The tools are absolutely for real, so we will see. But I also have him at 16. 15 for me, I have also the same as you, Carl. AJ Epinesa. He's playing edge rusher 7 technique for the Iowa Hawkeyes right now. But I think in the NFL, not only could he play that base end in that 4-3 kind of scheme, but I think in a 3-4 scheme, he also has the ability to play 4-IR5 technique. He has the frame to get up to 285 to 290 pounds, very similar to a Justin Smith, which Fangio utilized at that role for the 49ers. Very heavy hands, can 2-gap, and I think a guy that, because teams know that he is the dude on that Iowa defense, is getting a lot of attention and showing he can actually hold the edge up pretty well against double teams, which is a big thing. But right now I have him at 15 overall. Not the cleanest fit for the Broncos in the scheme. There's a little bit of projection there, which adds risk, but that's a top 10 player there as far as the overall league goes that I have here at 15. So if he falls there, you definitely have to consider it.
Right. It's one of those, you just picture him rushing between Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, and those three coming after the quarterback. I mean, teams would just be scared out of their wits. I mean, I know he's had a down year statistically, but it is, like you said, teams are focusing on him and pretty much saying anybody but this guy beat us on that Iowa defense. And so, I mean, yeah, you can't quite look at the raw stats and say, oh, this guy, he was a one-hit wonder. No, that's not the case. But like I said, it's still not quite the perfect fit, but the talent-wise, it's hard to pass up on the talent. So right there, 15 seems about right for where you're looking at the Broncos big board, maybe not the overall big board. And so then for 14, I go back to the offensive line, and I'm going to butcher this name. Tyler Biedes. There it goes. Another interior offensive lineman, just considered one of the best interior guys to come out here for a while. Just seems like a lock to be a first round guy. And as much as tackle is definitely a need for the Broncos, that interior could definitely need a huge upgrade for the Broncos as well. I mean, like I said, McGovern, he's been average, but if you can get elite talent there at that center position, it can really just fortify that offensive line all the more. And so, if the Broncos again trade back or somehow find themselves later in the draft, or if he's there in the second round, he's another guy I'm jumping for. He's another one I might even be willing to trade back into the first round. And because the Broncos have a little bit of draft capital this year. And if he's there at the end of round 1, I'm saying, oh, let's go get this guy so we can get that 5th year option.
I actually like Creed Humphrey more than Tyler Biedes if we're keeping this scheme, just because the athletic upside. Biedes is not the best athlete. Very sound, very smart, but more just kind of a fire hydrant type, where I think Creed has shown more, not only, horizontal agility, but the ability to climb to the second level and, do some seal blocks against linebackers. So that's why I'd have Creed Humphrey over Biedes. I have Biedes 23 and Humphrey 22, so it's close. But that's just my thought right now there. 14 for me, Christian Fulton, cornerback for LSU. Second best cornerback out there, but really good. I do have some questions about the tackling, but not like Greedy Williams last year. And some off coverage questions as well, but he's talented. He's my cornerback 3 right now. And I like him for the skit, don't love him, but cornerback is one of those positions that you can never have too much. And, Bosby is playing well, but he was injured. We're seeing some from Devontae Harris, but, how much is that? The scheme, the safeties, et cetera, et cetera. Chris Harris Jr. might leave. So cornerback is definitely something that's a pretty high potential need, and Fulton's one of the better ones out there. And that's one of those positions where if the board falls that way and the best player on your board is a cornerback, you just, you say, okay, well, that makes sense, and you take him. And that's kind of where I'm at on Fulton.
Yeah, I have him at 13. So okay. There we go. I mean, like I said, if the Broncos look at cornerback, it's very well that this guy could be the one that they decide to go with. I think he'd be a decent fit with the Broncos, not a perfect fit, but he would be an upgrade over especially 2 through 5 right now at the cornerback position for the Broncos.
Yeah. That makes sense. Alrighty, well, now it's on to me. 13, I have my cornerback 2, Trevon Diggs, Alabama. Big dude, the brother of Stephon Diggs, playing really good football. I think a better fit for this defense, more physical than Christian Fulton. And he's not getting the consistent hype right now that Fulton is as far as being a potential top cornerback in this class. But I don't know. I think Diggs is a better fit, and I like him a lot. So I'm going to have him at 13, just slightly above Fulton in my cornerback 2.
Yeah, not a bad choice there. I mean, I guess I don't have him on my top 20 list, so
I would definitely put him over Paulson Adebo.
Yeah. Okay.
Personally.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I need to dig into him a little bit more. I've seen a couple times where he's gotten beat and just had a little bit of up and down play at times this year. But I can't argue with the fit. And like I said, he's very physical. He's a very sound tackler. He fits well with what the Broncos like in their cornerback position. But now I'm going to go to the other side of that. My number 12 player. And this is one I struggled to know where to put him. And because I do think he is exactly what the Broncos need. But there are a lot of other players that I guess I like the overall talent a little bit more. But Henry Ruggs III, Alabama. I mean, you're talking about Trevon Diggs, Alabama. There's a lot of Alabama players here in the top part of this draft, as usual. But, I mean, the speed is just, it's unreal. I mean, I saw you tweet out something about that if it was Henry Ruggs running that route that Deontay Spencer ran on that deep route, it'd be a touchdown.
Easily, yep.
And I can't disagree. I mean, this guy is one of the most explosive players in all of college football and is such a great complement to what Courtland Sutton brings to the field. And if the Broncos keep moving back in the draft by winning games, man, if Henry Ruggs is the consolation prize for them winning games, then please keep winning games because he is such a great fit for the Broncos. And just a true talent that gets a little bit overshadowed just because of his playing partner on the other side. But man, again, just probably one of the best fits of any player in this draft for the Broncos.
Yeah, he's a good one, and I have him coming up too, but not yet. Number 12 for me, Isaiah Simmons, linebacker/safety. I'm a little bit worried about his exact fit, but he's a guy that he's just such a dynamic skill set and player. Like, honestly, he might be better at safety than anything in the scheme for the Broncos, but I think he's more versatile than what you get from Grant Delpit, that ability to come down and, change schemes, cover 4 look, cover 2 look, can play nickel back, can maybe drop back and play free safety, can go out there, and if he's isolated against a guy, that's fine. But essentially, I'm getting my Travis Kelce killer. I think he is that kind of player. And I trust Fangio to get him in a position where he can be successful and succeed, whether that be linebacker, safety, heavy nickel, star position, whatever the hell you want to call it. So Isaiah Simmons at 12, just too dynamic to not have higher.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have him higher on my board than you do. So yeah. I do think that, like you said, he might not be the perfect fit of what you're exactly looking for, but right now I'm just seeing with Fangio play players to their strengths, and I would love to see what he could do with a guy like Isaiah Simmons. But before I get to Isaiah Simmons...
Scared shitless of A.J. Johnson coming in for coverage issues.
Yep.
Just because, I mean, what we've seen from him, he's a big dude, he's strong, really brings a lot of energy, but if you're asking him to trail or turn his hips, it's not going to be great.
Right.
And what do they do in obvious pass downs? They are using him in that Patriots Dante Hightower mold where he's lining up over an A-gap, and even if he doesn't blitz, even if he kind of drops back to a quick shallow zone, the fact that he is threatening to do an A-gap blitz changes the coverage, changes how they have to pass protect, et cetera, et cetera. So putting guys in position to succeed makes me a little bit more confident with a not clean fit, such as Isaiah Simmons.
Right. Well, I'm going to go number 11 here with Jeffrey Okudah. I'm going to guess you have him a little bit higher on your board than I do.
Yes.
Mostly, I just know that because Eric and I talked earlier. Mm-hmm. And you two disagree on this guy a little bit. Let me just say, I think he is by far the best cornerback in this draft. And if the Broncos get him, I'm going to be absolutely ecstatic. I do think that he has a little bit of struggle in zone coverage. Now, I think it's one of those sometimes with a player of his caliber, you start nitpicking more than you probably should. It's one of those you probably should just stop questioning and just say, this guy's talented. We'll find a way to use him. But I do worry just a little bit about the fit. But again, this is another guy. I mean, we're getting to the top players of this draft, and it's one of those, if you get him, I trust that the Broncos are going to figure out how to use such a talented player.
Yeah. I mean, he's long. He's still developing. He's playing at a defensive back factory at Ohio State. And the ball skills, there was questions coming into the year. He's showing that. Now the question is the zone/spatial awareness. I think it can come. You know, there's a little bit of nuance. It's like matchup zone going on there as well. So there is a little bit of, it's not like a pure Tampa 2 or a cover 3. You know, there's a little bit of versatility there, which makes this defense so unique and fun and hard for a lot of teams to go against. But I do have Okudah coming up here. Not just yet, though. My number 11 player, higher than you. I have Henry Ruggs. Like you mentioned, the speed, just crazy speed. I think he's a really good fit for this offense. He complements well, and we've been harping on it. Explosive pass offense. Well, he's arguably one of the most explosive pass weapons we've seen since John Ross. So if he runs what they think he's going to run, he might even go higher. He might even end up being wide receiver 1. I think there's 3 wide receivers in this class you could all make an argument for, but I have Ruggs at 11, and I guess I'll just, because we're running long, I'll steamroll into 10 and 9 as well. All wide receivers. Number 10 overall, I have CeeDee Lamb. Carl, you were right. CeeDee Lamb is not just an X. He's showing more than that. His routes have improved this year. His yak has improved this year. And without Marquise Brown there, he is the offense along with Jalen Hurts for that team. His versatility, his route running, it's all there. Again, another guy who could be wide receiver 1 on just depending on a team's needs on their board. So that's number 10 for me. And number 9, I have Jerry Jeudy, who has been my consensus number 1 wide receiver. He is still my number 1 wide receiver. I think he's versatile. The yak ability, the route running ability is all incredible. Complements Sutton very well. But any 3 of those wide receivers, I think, if you can get your hands on them, you are damn happy about that and running with them. And I do got to say, LaVisca is my 24th. Injury concerns, reason for that. And I have Jalen Reagor as my 27th overall player. So those guys are lower, but I think they're on a tier difference than the Jeudy, Lamb, and Ruggs of this draft.
Right. I mean, I have them a little bit higher than you do. I mean, I love my wide receivers. And it does kind of seem, if the Broncos stay where they are, if they miss out on the top 2 tackles, it really does seem like wide receiver becomes that next big position, unless you're looking at quarterback, that the Broncos really could target in this draft. But I'll get my 10 and 9 here. I have Isaiah Simmons. You've already mentioned what he can bring to the table. That true coverage linebacker that the Broncos have been missing. Just a true guy that can shut down like a Travis Kelce, and you can leave him one-on-one and trust that he's going to do fine in that. But my number 9, Derek Brown, I don't think there's probably. He is the best defensive lineman in this draft. And a guy that can play nose, guy that can play defensive end. He can collapse the pocket. He can take on double teams. He can get into the backfield, make sacks. I mean, he's just all around really showing well this year and just destroying game plans of other teams. And I mean, it just seems like he's improving as the season goes as well. And so if the Broncos decide, you know what, we just got to take this kind of talent that's here, I wouldn't blame them one bit to add a guy like Derek Brown to the defensive line rotation.
Yeah. I like Derek Brown a lot, and there's a reason I haven't listed him yet. So
I figured so.
Number 8 for me is Jeffrey Okudah. There are some concerns with his zone, but I think the length, the tackling, the ball skills showing out, the hip fluidity, the click and close, I mean, those are all elite level traits, and he's the second best cornerback in football behind Stingley, who's a true freshman. I'm going to throw that out there again, but cornerback is such an important position. The future of the cornerback position at all in Denver is a complete unknown, and I think he's the best one in this class. So probably I'm looking to look more there end of round 1, day 2, just with how this class is. They're like AJ Terrell, Sean Wade if he comes out, Cameron Dantzler, those are some names, but Okudah is the best one in this class. And I think he is scheme versatile, but the real important crazy traits that he has are the size that he has, but it's the click and close and the hip fluidity paired with the size and the speed. So really a unique player there. So that's my number 8. Number 7, I have Derek Brown. Yeah, I have him listed as 0, 1, and 3 technique. He could play 4 and 5 also in some sets, but I mean, 6'5", 320 pounds. He is got great burst, great strength, a constant pocket disruptor, and for as solid as Mike Purcell has been at that nose tackle position, if you have a chance to get a guy like Derek Brown there, or you can play him at 5 technique as well, depending on the alignment, whatever the game situation calls for. But Brown is a difference maker up there. He's, I think, pretty far and away the best defensive lineman in this class. And with how Fangio has shown with the Bears that he likes himself some meat at that defensive line spot, the heavy guys, the big, long guys, Derek Brown just really feels like a good fit there. And I believe he was one of the top recruits coming out when he chose Auburn. And he's showing like it right now. It's luckily for that Broncos class that he is, or this upcoming draft class that he chose to return instead of going to that super dynamic defensive line class last year, because he's playing like a top 10 pick right now.
Can you imagine him and Purcell in on the goal line situations for runs?
And
you're not moving those guys.
Yeah. But it's obviously he's big and whatnot, but there's a lot of big guys out there. It's the fact that he can beat one-on-ones. He can move a little bit. Did you see the game where he got substituted the game this week with Auburn against Ole Miss?
I saw parts of it.
Did you see? Okay, so there's a play where Derek Brown was subbed out and the Auburn only had 10 guys on the field, so Brown was rushed back out from the sideline, and Ole Miss thought they got him and they threw a little bit pass out to the flat, and here comes Derek Brown on the field, but kind of coming from that like a nickelback strong safety position, and hits the running back in space, like closes on him like a cornerback. And
I didn't see that play. I'll have to go watch that one.
Pretty incredible. Yeah. Like it was like the fact that he closed on him like he did for the size that he has is like, okay, that's different. There's like, obviously if you're playing Division I at SEC starting at Auburn, you're different enough, but like that was different. So I'm not calling him Jeffrey Simmons. I don't think he's that caliber of player for me, but Derek Brown's right up there, and I think he's pretty easily the best defensive lineman in this class, and the Broncos don't have anybody of that caliber right now, so there's a reason he's number 7 on my board. He's a pretty special player.
There you go. All right, well, I'm going to give my 8 through 6 here. Justin Herbert at number 8, CeeDee Lamb at 7, Jerry Jeudy at 6. Justin Herbert, I keep going back and forth on this guy. At times, if you look at his highlights, you sit there and say, this guy should be number 1 overall. You look at his lowlights, and you're sitting there saying, I don't know if this guy's a quality quarterback. There's just so many times where he does things that you're just like, what are you doing on the field? And the other times you're going, oh my gosh, what did I just watch? Yeah, the USC game was so good. He was so good, and he looks like a top 5 pick. But there's other games where he can't make some of the throws. And it's not that he can't make the throw, it's just that he doesn't. And he's so inconsistent at times with his accuracy. And so I don't know. I can't tell if I like him or not. There's still a lot more I need to evaluate, I guess, when watching him. But to the 2 wide receivers, Jerry Jeudy, it's been kind of weird because he's not really been as featured this year for Alabama. But that's kind of a little bit, teams have tried to shut him down. And of course, then you got Henry Ruggs and Devontae Smith as well. Of course, they got the running game. They have so many other weapons that if Judy's covered, they can go find somebody else. But he still is the best route runner I've seen in a long time. He's got quickness. He's got speed. He's got hands. He's got everything that you want at the wide receiver position. He'd be a great fit opposite of Cortland Sutton. Give the Broncos two true number 1 wide receivers, a guy that could come in and be 1,000-yard receiver day 1 for the Broncos. CeeDee Lamb, another guy that I love him so much. I almost put him over Jeudy. I think Judy's maybe a little bit better fit, but CeeDee Lamb, I have loved him for a long time there at Oklahoma. He's just so dynamic in the open field. The guy just looks so good. He's one of their return specialists at times when they need a big play. He's got such strong hands to go make every catch in the book. Just everything he does is good on the field. So that'd be my 8 through 6.
Alrighty, so I guess I should give my number 6 and number 5 here. Number 6 for me, Andrew Thomas, the offensive tackle from Georgia, and number 5, Tristan Wirfs, the offensive lineman from Iowa, playing right tackle, but he could play left tackle easily. He would at Iowa if Alaric Jackson was comfortable doing right tackle, because Tristan Wirfs is the dude. And if he doesn't work out at tackle, which he will, he'll play guard at a very high level. So I think Wirfs has got more upside, more athleticism, more versatility, more scheme versatility. But Thomas is a safer player right now. more technical, better usage of his hands, a little safer in his pass sets. But it's the upside of Wirfs. And I know people, oh no, we went with Garrett Bowles over Ryan Ramczyk, and this is the same thing. Well, it comes down to that individual player still, and also how much you trust your staff. And like you said, I trust Mike Munchak more than I have any offensive line coach the Broncos have had since, Gibbs, probably in the 90s. That's the only one that comes to mind in that regard. So I did think Kugler was solid, but he's not Mike Munchak. So Wirfs is my offensive tackle number one. Andrew Thomas right there, and either of those guys would be just game changers for the Broncos. I mean, just absolute game changers for what this team can do on offense. So I love them both. And I'm just going to roll on out here. Number 4 for me, Justin Herbert, quarterback from Oregon. Number 3, Chase Young, edge rusher from Ohio State. Number 2, quarterback Joe Burrow, LSU. Number 1, quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, Alabama. Carl, I'm a simple man. I'm from the Midwest. I operate by a simple moral guideline. Do you have, or even just draft guideline, do you have your franchise quarterback on the roster definitively? If yes, you can look at other positions. If no, you have to consider the quarterback. And for as much as I think Drew Lock could be the guy, we do not know at this point in juncture. So if there are some potential franchise quarterbacks on the board, you have to have them on there at the top. It's the same thing I did in 2018. Wasn't sure on Josh Allen. I still, had him, I think, probably end of round 1 because of the tools. But I thought, and same with Lamar Jackson. There's some concerns there with the running. Obviously, in hindsight, those two guys are killing it because of that running ability and the athleticism being paired in good situations with good defense. It takes more than just the quarterback. But I had 3 quarterbacks, 1, 2, and 3, with Bradley Chubb number 4 in that draft class because it came down to the Broncos have their long-term option at quarterback on the roster. No. So you got to have the quarterbacks at the top, and I still have that stance right now. So I have 3 quarterbacks in the top 4 just because I give such a weight to franchise quarterback potential. But number 3, though, Chase Young. I'll save that for just a second. I guess I should kick it off to you. So I have three of my top 4 guys are quarterbacks, with Chase Young being the 3rd player.
Okay, well, I don't have quarterback at the top. I have Joe Burrow at number 5, and honestly, I went back and forth who to have as my top quarterback because I think Joe Burrow is a great fit for this system. And I think he'd be a great player for the Broncos. And then, of course, Tua at number 4. I think both of them would work well with this system and what they can do with their legs, as well as with their arms and their intelligence on the field, all those kind of things. But I'm a little bit lower, I guess, on quarterback just because it's not that I believe in Locke. It's that I'm willing to give Locke a chance. Because I do think the 2021 quarterback class looks like it's going to be pretty darn strong. And so I'm willing to take a little bit of risk here to try to build around a quarterback. And if it's not Locke, then at least you're built around the next rookie quarterback. And so then that leaves to my top 3 guys, Andrew Thomas at 3, Tristan Wirfs at 2. I'm with you. I have Wirfs over Thomas just because of the high upside. I think he's just such a great fit and just one of those true tone setters. The guy that just gets everybody else fired up when you just watch this guy go out there and pancake somebody. But it's also that I think he's shown a lot more. I know people are saying that he's raw, but he's shown a lot more than I think people realize. And I think he's showing more and more each week. And I think he'd just be such a great fit for the Broncos. And then, of course, number 1, I have Chase Young. And that was a tough one, and it's not a position of need, obviously. The Broncos have, I'd say, at least 3 quality edge rushers right now on this team. But if you're looking at the past 2, maybe 3 drafts, Chase Young would be at the top of every one of those with what he's doing on the field this year. And so it's hard to pass on that kind of talent. Personally, if he's there when the Broncos pick, I'm using that as a way to get a bunch of draft capital. And just pretty much say, all right, come get your guy, and have everybody bidding on this incredible young pass rusher. And then the Broncos come away with like 3 first-round picks for a pass rusher. So that's kind of my order. And like I said, Chase Young, I'd love him on the Broncos, but it's not a need. I would use it more for draft capital, but he is still the top player in this draft. Yep,
but for everybody riding high with the Broncos beating the Browns right now, Chase Young is far and away the best player in this draft. He'd been the best player in the last draft, too, and that's with how good we've seen Nick Bosa being. Young has been that much better at Ohio State. dominant. Probably, I mean, people are throwing out Jadeveon Clowney comparisons. The prospect, not the NFL player. Don't conflate the two. As well as Julius Peppers. And obviously Von Miller is going to be 31, 32 years old. Bradley Chubb coming off the ACL. If you have a chance at Chase Young and you don't want to take the quarterback and there's not a deal there to trade down that equates the value of getting a guy like him, I'm sorry, you have to take him. You have to consider it. So he's number 3 on my board for a reason. I went back and forth between him or Herbert at 3. In the end, I went with Young, but I do like Herbert a fair amount as well. But then I Burrow 2 and Tagovailoa 1. So it's just he's that level of a player. You know, he really is. So honestly, I mean, there's a reason he's being talked about for the Heisman right now, and it would not be shocking if he ended up being the first overall player taken, just like the Browns saying, you know what, we do need quarterback pretty badly. We do see Mahomes and Watson and at the time Trubisky in this class as well, but we can't pass up for Myles Garrett. He's just that level of a player, and that could turn out to be the case with Chase Young as well. He's that level of a player at a very valuable position. It's not quarterback, but getting after the passer is the next best thing. So I think we agree there. So any shock on my end or anything you want to ask me before we get out of here?
No, I mean, I guess I need to go watch a little bit more of Diggs because you're a lot higher on him than I am.
Yeah, specifically for this scheme.
Yeah, and I guess I can understand that. I guess, like I said, I've seen him have his moments of struggle at times. And really, I mean, and part of that is just, it's been kind of crazy to see Alabama as a defense struggle.
Their front seven's not great, although
right.
Lewis is pretty darn really, really good.
Right.
But, yeah, it's not the Alabama of old. They really are missing Dylan Moses.
But, no, I am excited to see you coming around a little bit on CeeDee Lamb.
I'm surprised you didn't have CeeDee Lamb 1. I thought you were going to make your bold statement here.
Oh, man, I thought about it. I should have done it.
I thought you were going to do it.
No, I do, because I do think he brings more than just being a big, strong receiver like Cortland Sutton. I do think he has a little bit more speed. I think he has more ability in the open field, although Cortland Sutton with that stiff arm, man, that thing is just, that should be registered as a deadly weapon with how good that is. But no, I mean, I think those two paired together, teams would be going, what do we do? So it'd be fun to watch them. I do think wide receiver is really going to be a huge position of need for the Broncos, and it would not surprise me if they took any of those top 3. And if they did any of them, I'd be sitting there cheering like crazy that the Broncos took them. I'm not usually a wide receiver in round 1, but these 3 guys are just such great fits and great talents that I would not care one bit about it. But anybody on my group that really kind of made you go, what in the world are you doing?
I was surprised you had a Debo that high. And I was surprised that, you know, I guess your quarterback ranking, what made you go it the way you did?
So, I guess
where's the line there? Like, why would you really take Tristan Wirfs over the quarterback? Because the quarterback's going to go before Tristan Wirfs most likely. So I guess it comes down to quarterback in the end as well.
Well, yes, I would take. I guess I'm a little bit more of a believer than Locke than maybe you are. And it's also, I'm not as high on this quarterback class. I like Tua, but I still have a lot of worries about Tua. I mean, the injury history is really concerning for me, especially if you're taking him and not having one of those left tackles. I mean, it's not that you can't fix the tackle position outside of the first round. I mean, I think people need to keep that in mind, that if the Broncos don't take tackle in the first round, it's not the end of the world. There's still going to be some pretty quality tackles there in round 2, I think. But like I said, there's just still some concern there. Joe Burrow, I like his game a lot. He's growing on me more and more, and I probably should have him as my top quarterback. I just, again, kind of went back and forth a little bit on that one because I do like his fit with the Broncos. He's not got the biggest arm by any means, but I love his ability to maneuver in the pocket. That's probably one of my favorite things about his game. And then Justin Herbert, I guess, and maybe this is just a little bit, we've seen too much of Herbert.
Overexposure.
Yeah. Because, I mean, he's still playing really good football. I mean, if you look even just at the raw stats, if you watch him play, his stats should actually be a lot better. Mm-hmm. He has maybe the worst wide receiver core of any of the top quarterbacks. I mean,
dude, Juwan Johnson showing up for him made such a world of difference.
Yeah, it did.
It's incredible, the difference of having a true wide receiver 1.
Right. I mean, when you're not having guys drop passes left and right, they should have beat Auburn earlier in the year but drop passes cost them that game. So, I mean, maybe it is a little bit of that, but I guess there's a little bit of just frustration sometimes with Herbert because he's just almost too even-keeled. I like guys that show a little bit more emotion, but there's times I almost feel like he's too quiet of a voice. And so that worries me a little bit. And I guess that's where I wish I could be in the meeting rooms to hear what this guy has to say and hear him talk and hear what his coaches have to really say about him. Because, I mean, with Joe Burrow, I mean, you see the excitement. Tua, I mean, obviously there's a lot of energy there. And I also like those guys because I feel like they use their athleticism a little bit more than Justin Herbert does. And right now in this league, you're starting to see there's such a switch to that athletic quarterback. I mean, Lamar Jackson last night just destroyed that top defense that was being talked about as this historical defense. And so, again, teams are kind of looking for a little bit more of that, of ability to scare teams with their legs just as much as their arms. And I feel like Burrow and Tua bring a little bit more towards that.
I do not disagree with you there. Well, we should probably get going because we're long, and hopefully this will upload because we went long. But that's going to close up today's episode of Building the Broncos, powered by Overtime Media. You can find Carl on Twitter, at Carl Dumler MHH, and myself, at Nick Kendell MHH. Make sure you head on over to milehighhuddle.com, an affiliate of the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated. You can follow the Building the Broncos podcast and all our other great audio content by subscribing to the Huddle Up podcast wherever you listen to your shows. You can follow us on Twitter, at Mile High Huddle and at BTB Football Pod. For Carl, I'm Nick, wrapping up another episode of the Building the Broncos podcast. We hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will see you soon. Go Broncos.
You've been listening to Building the Broncos. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.